Good morning, guys. Welcome to Ansarkari. So let's start with our today's discussion from the Hindu newspaper, and we'll be going through the Financial Express and also through the Mint. Supreme Court says that doubling the court strength is not going to end the pendency. So that is not the solution according to the Supreme Court. And judiciary, we know that it is overburdened because of the system, and it is difficult to find good lawyers to fill the judicial vacancies. So when we are talking about increasing the strength, we are not able to even completely fill the vacancies that we have right now. So Supreme Court says that the judiciary is overburdened because of the system, and the issue dependency of cases is not going to end despite increasing the strength. So currently the strength of Supreme Court stands at 34, and the petitioner says that the judge to population ratio in developed countries is at 50 for every million population. And in India, there are at least 10 crore cases pending in the district judiciary alone. So the problem of pendency of cases is very huge and it is increasing. Also, according to our Chief Justice of India, he said that the American Supreme Court does not hear lawyers on whether you should admit a case for a hearing or not. And for the UK Supreme Court, it decides which 180 cases they have to hear, and not talking about all these things. Talking about the Air India is going to merge with Vistara, so Vistara is actually going to merge with Air India. So Tata Group is trying to bring all its airlines under one head and focusing upon delivering quality services. Then, in the state of Manipur, there are bettings happening in which animals are being awarded to the person who wins that betting or that gambling. So wild animals, be it dead or alive, they are being offered as prizes under the draws that are happening in the state of Manipur. And the cases have been reported from Ukhrul, which is about 80 kilometers northeast of the state's capital, Imphal. And you can see that it's a bear cat in the picture, which is Bintu wrong, and it's an arboreal mammal, which is known as bear cat. So such animals are being offered which have, high value. So they have exotic meat, and that's how things are taking place. So other animals that are offered as prizes includes the tragopans, which are often called the horned pheasants. And then there is Blyth tragopan, which is so this Blyth tragopan is also the state bird of Nagaland. So investigation has been started and to look into this matter. Then we have, okay, the state of Punjab, it is undergoing a campaign and undergoing a drive where police is asking people to remove the content which promotes gun culture from their social media handles. So this is, you can commonly find such pictures on social media, especially when we talk about boys posting such pictures. So the policies or the drive is not against providing the gun licenses. New licenses are being issued on a merit basis, considering the threat perception after proper verification. So things are moving in this direction in the state of Punjab. Talking about the state of Haryana, so if you are preparing for Haryana civil services also, so you should be knowing that there are certain loopholes in Haryana's RERA law, which is the Real Estate Regulation Act. And recently, a RERA summit has Real Estate Summit is held in Gurugram, which was organized by the National Real Estate Development Council, which is an apex real estate body that works under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. So find out more about this council. Moving ahead. We talked about this that the state of Karnataka and Maharashtra, they have a border issue, and states, so the case has been listed in the Supreme Court for hearing on this matter, and states, they have been reorganized under the States Reorganization Act 1956. So the region that is controversial between the two states is the Belagavi, which was part of the erstwhile Bombay Presidency, as it has a sizable Marathi-speaking population. So as of now, the area of Belgavi is a part of the state of Maharashtra, and also the Chief Minister of Karnataka is claiming 80 Marathi speaking villages which are currently part of Karnataka. Sorry, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, he is claiming the Marathi speaking areas, so he's asking for merging those areas in the state of Maharashtra. So that is the issue, and it is listed for hearing in the Supreme Court. You can find out what is the Council of Architecture, which is a statutory authority of the Government of India. So Council of Architecture. Then Gita Mahotsav inaugurated by our president in Kurukshetra in Haryana. So she also launched the Nirogi Haryana, which is going to be a health checkup scheme, and also an e-ticketing system of public road transport facilities. Then talking about the Jallikattu. So Supreme Court says that what right do you want to protect? Basically asking the petitioners regarding the Jallikattu case. So the activist, they were Supreme Court said that the activist, what did they find wrong in the Tamil Nadu's Jallikattu law when it protects the animals from unnecessary pain and sought to preserve the culture and tradition of the people in the state also. So this is what the Supreme Court is asking the petitioners, and there is the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Tamil Nadu Amendment Act of 2017. Then there is Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Conduct of the Jallikattu rules, which also recognize the culture and the traditions of people as a fundamental right. And so this is currently the provision. There are certain laws which are protecting this cultural practice of Jallikattu in the state of Tamil Nadu, and there is a law in this in the state of Tamil Nadu regarding this. So, what is the constitutional right you want to protect here? So, reiterating this, and petitioners, they are saying that a mere activity does not give a fundamental right status because of an assertion. So this is the first point that they are raising, and the secondly, they are saying that there was no material to justify that Jallikattu is a part of culture, and basically they are trying to put forward that they do not support the practice of Jallikattu. So, talking about the constitutional provisions, so Article 32 is there, which is usually filed to protect the fundamental rights of a person. So, that's how this article talks about your protection of fundamental rights. And Supreme Court says that when the petitioners they are arguing that the animals they are entitled to the personhood the same rights as people under article 21, then why are you forgetting about plants? So don't they have the rights of protection? When you are speaking about animals, they are entitled to the same personhood rights as persons under article 21. So what about the plants then? So these are certain arguments that were put forward in the court, and let's see how this will going to unfold in future further. So a new device which is named Dozee. So this is India's first contactless RPM device, and this RPM device basically remote vital parameter monitoring device, which can convert any normal bed into a step down ICU. So the development of technology we can see in the health sector, and it has been developed by a city-based startup, which is the Turtle Shell Technology Private Limited, and the device is being deployed under the Arogya Daksh scheme, which is a joint initiative between the Center for Cellular and Molecular Platforms. So you can find out more about this platform and SBI Foundation. And according to World Bank, so we are looking at the data. So World Bank says that ICU beds in India, they stay at only 1,25,000 for a population of 140 crores, that is 1.4 billion. And we are just having ICU beds of around 1,25,000. So this technology is going to help in this direction in increasing the or easily converting the normal beds into ICUs. So This is the Dozee technology and the benefit of it. So, this is the most important article for today, which is talking about the issue of the national language, the official language, since the Parliamentary Committee on Official Languages few time ago under its 11th report, it said that Hindi should be made, basically we can say it was saying that Hindi should be used or made an official language in the southern states also and make it a part of the educational system also. So there were protests around this. So in that context, this article is talking about, it's a very beautiful article and talking about all the articles relevant to that. So this becomes important for both PT and mains, and please pay a full concentration over here when we are going to start our discussion about this. So imposing Hindi, it raises once again the issues around this topic of official language and the national language. And India, it has remained uniquely unified despite the infinite multiplicities of its cultures. And again, the issue of cultural nationalism arises. So when we are trying to reduce the use of English as a language of colonial power, it was passionately debated by the constitution makers also, and it was linked to the national prestige. And this thing, the when we talk about official language, it falls under the Constitution in Part 17, and the articles concerning it, they are Article 343 to Article 351. So you should be knowing about this and talking about what does Article 345 talks about. So it leaves it to the state to choose its language for official purposes. So states are given the freedom to choose their official languages. And Article 348 stipulates that all the proceedings of the Supreme Court and of every High Court and of bills presented in the State Assembly and in the Parliament, that is in Parliament, they shall be in the English language. So, this is what Article 348 is talking about. The bills, the proceedings in the Supreme Court and High Court, they should be in English language. Then we talk about the eighth schedule, which has 22 official languages of India, and there have been periodic additions to it, which spell out the diversity and the complexity of the language landscape that we have in India. And there is also the Official Languages Act of 1963. Now we come to the question of official language, which was definitely discussed and debated in the Constituent Assembly when our Constitution was being drafted, and it covered the topics of what is going to be or what should be the language of the legislatures, the language of courts and the judiciary, the language of official work of the Union. So even the educational institutions of national importance and those of scientific and technical education which were financed by the government of India, they were placed in the Union list, and the education, including technical, medical, and the universities, they were placed under the concurrent list. And talking about Article 351, it directs the state in the development of Hindi to draw upon other languages in the composite culture of India. Now, we see from time to time that dissent is there, people do not agree, some agree to this thing. So we are going to have a look at this issue and the dissents which are presented by people from time to time. So a commission, which is the BG Khair Commission, was constituted, and since that time we have seen different perspectives and different protests by the people. And we also saw violent clashes in 1965 in the state of Tamil Nadu, where 50 people died because of protesting on the imposition of Hindi in especially the southern states of India. So this year also, when we were having discussions when this topic was being raised in media about that Hindi should be made a compulsory language in the southern states, whether it should be made official and also made an important part of the educational system. The states of Tamil Nadu and Kerala, they were very clear and sharp and unambiguous in their response to this thing. And talking about that, there is a committee on official languages when we talk about the parliamentary committees. So it consists of 30 members of the parliament and it is headed by the home minister. So these facts, they become important for prelims. And coming to its mandate, its mandate is to review the progress made in the use of Hindi for the official purposes and to make recommendations to increase the use of Hindi in official communications. Then it submits its report to the President of India, who forwards its recommendations to the Parliament. And the last report that was presented to the Parliament was the ninth report, and there have been 10th and 11th reports, so they have now been submitted or not presented to the Parliament by the President, although they have been submitted to the President of India. So the latest report, that is the 11th report, it highlighted some of its recommendations on language of instruction and examinations in the technical courses. So it was specifically focusing upon the language of Hindi, expanding its usage. And also, then it raises questions regarding the what are going to be the challenges if Hindi gets imposed. So we have the challenges of availability of standard books and course material in Hindi language. Then we talk about do we have enough qualified teachers to communicate the the matter or the study material in Hindi adequately or not. And there is also a related concern that the competence in Hindi language of the candidates who are taking the examinations in Hindi and talking about their competition with people who have Hindi as their mother tongue. So I don't think so. It poses a fair picture when it comes to competition and specifically writing now you're taking down your examination in Hindi. So, at the root of the debate is the bigger question of identity in a diverse society. Nowhere in it was the suggestion. So, basically, this 11th report was not talking about that diversity, including the linguistic diversity, is to be subsumed in linguistic uniformity. So, this is a very nice sentence, and so I'll repeat this. So nowhere it was the committee, the report was talking about the suggestion that diversity, including the linguistic diversity, is to be subsumed in linguistic uniformity. So coming to the question of national language, which has again been an issue since the constitution was drafted. So the language of the chapter on the official language is definitive and it limits itself to the language of the union. And it is nowhere talking about the national language. Also, a constitution is also, there is no mention of national language in it, and there is no mention of the national language in either directive principles of state policy or in the fundamental duties also. So you need to remember this. This is important for prelims. And talking about Article 344, Clause 3, it stipulates that the just claims and interests of the persons who belong to non-Hindi speaking areas in regards to public services, they shall be considered by the president. So the interest of non-Hindi speaking people, their protecting their interest must be considered, and this is a part of the constitution as article 344 is speaking. So what is left to the government, what options are there which it can adopt? And firstly, the most simple one is that the constitutional course would be to opt for the language of Article 344. So, sticking to Article 344, that allows each legislature to the use of Hindi or to choose its own language for all the official purposes. So, leaving it to the states is the best option ahead when we look at from the perspective of communal peace and harmony, and also having it definitely has some political repercussions also. So if adopted the prudent for the longer term, it becomes obviously becomes prudent for longer term political harmony, and implied the cooperative federalism functions in a healthy manner in future. And also, we very often, see English from the perspective of our colonial past. So, in present times, the language has been accepted across the continents. So we should not, have a narrow perspective about the language of English today and accept it because it is obviously it's important, becomes important for you to know English because there are several continents where people speak in English. So even if you are like migrating to those countries for from the perspective of communication, you must be aware, and that's how it is. So let's move ahead. So a small development from the perspective of Pakistan there. The general, which was General Qamar Javed Bajwa, he is retired, and the new Pakistan's chief of army is General Saeed Asim Munir. So you can remember the name just from your GK perspective. So he'll be having multiple challenges given the economic situation of Pakistan right now. So he'll have to focus on bringing in the political stability and elevating people's perception in the army also. And there's also definitely faltering economy. So that will be his biggest challenge, and also not blaming the army for the economic mismanagement and the grave shortages of the essential commodities in Pakistan. So these are the things which he should focus upon. Coming to the option left to US when it comes to buying the oil, the crude oil. So Washington under the Trump regime, it was basically focusing more upon maximum pressure campaign, which was here we are talking specifically about the economy of Venezuela. So the relations between US and Venezuela. So basically, under the Trump regime, he was following the policy of maximum pressure campaign, which was aimed at ousting the president Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. So he recognized Juan Guaido as the self-declared unelected acting president of Venezuela. But however, he was not successful because Mr. Guaido, he never managed to mobilize enough political support. And secondly, the economy of Venezuela, it find another way out to survive around the sanctions that were imposed by United States by selling its heavy crude at a discounted price to China and other economies. So that's how we can say that the sanctions did not adversely impact the economy of Venezuela, and that's how it came out of it. So, given the situation and given the current situation, when we look at the global factors which are adding up to the pressure on the prices of the crude oil, so our import bills are rising. So, given this situation now, we look at the factors which are not working out for US. So now it has taken steps to, you know, ease its relations with Venezuela. So the first factor is that the Ukraine and Russia war is leading to energy crisis. The second is that the sanctions on Russia, they have pumped up the prices. Third is that attempts have been made to revive the Iran nuclear deal, but they have not succeeded so far. Fourth is the move of Saudi Arabia and its allies to slash the oil production, which is definitely going to mount additional pressure on the oil prices. So, given all these factors, they are not working out for the crude oil sector. So that's why US it is now opening up to Venezuelan markets to fulfill its oil requirements. And talking about the EWS quota, we already have had enough of discussions about this. So you can visit our previous videos if you have missed them. So this particular article is specifically talking, it's talking about that EWS category people, they are well represented in higher education, and it is providing enough data to substantiate this argument. So we are going to have a look at what the data is saying. So the basis of bringing in the EWS category reservation, according to the Constitution's 124th Amendment Bill, it claimed that the EWS from the general category, it has largely remained excluded in the higher education institutions due to their financial incapacity. So that was the basis why EWS reservation was put forward and amended amended the constitution. So first, the first data set is given by the National Institutional Ranking Framework. So it basically, the authors of this article, they have argued and they have presented this. So they say that the Ajay Bhushan Pandey committee, which was appointed to examine the EWS income criteria, it argues that considering that the currently effective income tax exemption limit is around 8 lakh, so rupees 8 lakh annual income for the individuals was set as the ceiling limit to decide that on this basis, on the basis of this income limit, will be deciding whether people fall in the EWS category or not. So all those individuals who have annual income of less than rupees 8 lakh, they'll be considered EWS under the general category. So the NRIF data for 2019, it suggests that the EWS students, they constituted 19% in the NIRF ranked higher educational institutions. So here we are talking about 10% reservation, but they are having more than 10% representation in the higher educational institutions, and these are one of the best institutions. So this is one thing, and the another data is given by the periodic labor force survey of 2019. So the authors, they have used the Palmer ratio, which is a measure of inequality, and they have bifurcated the data, the households, into three categories. The bottom 40%, which is the poor and which has been analyzed. So the second one is the middle, which is 50%, and the top 10% is the rich. So these are three different categories of the households. They have been categorized by the author of these articles. So they are analyzing the bottom 40% of the households. So in the bottom 40% of the households, the proportion of the general category defined as non-SC, ST, and OBCs, that is 18%. So out of the 18% general category in the bottom 40% of the households, around 20% in the age group of 18 to 25 years old, they have enrolled in the higher educational institutions. So 20% is their representation in the higher educational institutions. So this is sufficient to tell that the share of EWS category from the general category in higher educational institution is well above 10%. So why this reservation? Because it has solely been constituted under this claim that they are not, or they remain excluded in the higher educational institutions given their financial incapacity. But the data is not saying so. Talking about the waste processing, we have the solid waste disposal rules. So firstly, you must be aware about those rules, the features, what do they say? And first, we'll see the waste disposal from the perspective of Delhi. So half of the municipal solid waste of Delhi, it went to the landfills in the year 2020-21. So this data has been provided by the Envis Stats India 2022, which is published by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So whenever we are talking about any index or any crucial report, you should know which ministry publishes it. This can definitely come up in PT and you can later get confused, landing up on the wrong answers. So you should know about the ministry which publishes that index or any crucial report. So it says that half the municipal solid waste, it went to landfills, and other half of the waste was recycled and reused. So the share of construction and the demolition waste was completely recycled. So this is in context of Delhi, the waste generated only in Delhi, and then we'll talk about the entire India's waste. Then it says that the biomedical waste was incinerated, and it is not known how e-waste is disposed of, as there is no treatment or disposal facility available in Delhi for e-waste. So there is no facility available at the moment. Then 22% of the plastic waste was converted into energy and 37% is taken to landfills. Now, talking about the entire India, 68% of the municipal solid waste is generated is processed. So out of the total municipal solid waste, 68% is processed and Himachal Pradesh is the leading state in which 90% of the waste gets processed, followed by Chhattisgarh, which accounts for 93% of processing. And talking about the poorly performing states, so West Bengal processed only 9%. Then talking about the biomedical waste, so 87% of the entire biomedical waste generated in India is treated, and 17 states and 5 union territories have already achieved the 100% biomedical waste treatment. So we are performing well when it comes to the biomedical waste treatment, and poorly performing and where we need to focus more is the area of the hazardous waste that is generated and recycled and utilized is only 45% of the total waste, and most of the states they lag in this indicator. So when you have a look at this table number 3, you will be seeing that this is showing for the entire municipal solid waste that is processed. So India, or at all India level, 68% of it is processed, and the top state we can see is Himachal Pradesh. So 98% you can see. So we are performing nicely in the municipal solid waste processing and the biomedical waste. So in biomedical, you can see most of the states they have 100% level of processing of the biomedical waste. And you can see the figure for the hazardous waste. So it is, we can say, recycled or utilized at a very less level. So we need to focus upon this area when it comes to the waste processing of the waste that is generated. We are seeing that the civil aviation is reviving, and though it has not reached the pre-COVID levels, but the numbers show that it is strongly reviving. Now, looking at the issue of the entry of women in the masjids. So, we see that last week the Jama Masjid in Delhi prohibited the entry of single women or women in groups inside the mosque premises. But however, because of backlash, the the ban was withdrawn. And when we look at the Quran, it does not place any prohibition on women from going to to a mosque for prayers. And there are petitions which are filed before the Supreme Court regarding this issue, which has sought access to women in all the mosques across the country. And the apex court it has also clubbed all these petitions with that of the Sabrimala case. So even that is regarding the entry of a woman in the Sabrimala temple. Now, the Azan, if you look at certain things of the the religion of Muslims, so it is not pointing towards, or even the practices that are followed every day, they do not point to prohibiting women from entering mosque for prayers. So even whenever there is an Azan, so it is a general invitation to both men and women. And even Muslims, they go to Mecca and Medina for Hajj. So there also there is no such prohibition which is practiced. And also, uh, you should be knowing that there was a case regarding the same case that prohibited the entry of women in the main sanctum sanctorum of the Haji Ali Dargah in Mumbai. So that ban or that prohibition was also lifted by the Bombay High Court in 2016, which favored the women's entry. And talking about the constitutional provision, the constitutional issues. So in the constitution, there is complete equality between men and women. Also, we are not, there is no provision, or there's a provision which is talking about the right to equality, and there is, we cannot discriminate on the basis of religion. And talking about the Haji Ali Dargah case, even in that too, the High Court it quoted Articles 15, 16, and 25 of the Constitution to grant women the desired access to Dargah. So Article 25 relates to the right to freedom of religion. Then 15 and 16, talking about the right to equality. So Supreme Court has clubbed all these petitions, and let's see what is going to be its judgment. And looking at the Karnataka voter data theft case. So the Bengaluru civic body, it had given permission to a trust to conduct house-to-house surveys to create awareness about the voting rights of the people under the systematic voters education and electoral participation program of the Election Commission of India. This question has already been asked, the what is the sweep program, and it is being run by the ECI. So, but it was found that trust, it was collecting personal information from the public in the form of their Aadhaar numbers, their phone numbers, and their voter ID numbers, and they were found uploading that data on a digital Samiksha app instead of on the Election Commission's voter registration app, which is called Garuda. So this case has been taken up. Basically, FIRs have been filed under the cases of criminal breach of trust, cheating, by personation, cheating, and forgery of the IPC, and what is going to happen is that let's see what will happen. And the mass collection of data, it is violative of your fundamental right to privacy, which was upheld under the KS Puttaswamy judgment versus Union of India. And obviously, the right to privacy, it emanates from your right to life and personal liberty, which is guaranteed by Article 21. So this can come in PT, that right to privacy emanates from, whether it emanates from Article 21 or Article 19 of the Constitution. So it is from Article 21. And the probe which is going to happen is definitely it would act as a deterrence. But what about the data that has already been taken by the people? Are we going to get back that entire data and ensure that it gets deleted? So that is a cause of concern now, because it is very difficult, or we can say almost impossible, given the technology that we have today, because by now, the number of copies of the data, they could have been anywhere in the world on the cloud. So, and the potential people who are ready to pay for that data would be getting that data available to them. So that is the concern right now. And we need to ensure that such cases do not come up in future. And talking about the electoral symbols, so Election Commission of India has an important role in this case. So till the time the dispute goes on, so Election Commission of India allots different symbols to the political parties for the time being till the issue is resolved by it. So also the political parties, they need to provide their respective claims under the election symbols reservation and allotment order 1968 to bolster their claim for that particular the symbol of the party. Then India has grown as a regional power in the Indo-Pacific region. We are almost every day talking about the Indo-Pacific and the importance of it for India, what is India's position as far as the Indo-Pacific region is concerned. So India has been a net security provider. This is a key term. We are net security provider in the Indo-Pacific as its capacity, because of our capacity to provide humanitarian assistance and disaster relief to the citizens and the regional partners. Also, we have strengthened our multilateral partnerships through engagement via regional mechanisms, and also our response to crisis situation is also very quick. And right now, the humanitarian assistance and disaster relief exercise Samanvay is going on in Agra, UP, and also in the Pacific region. It is vulnerable to the impact of climate change also. So this factor also comes in, and the exercise is being conducted by the Indian Air Force right now. So this piece of news article, it is very, very important for PT. So basically, it is talking about the joint military exercises that we have with different countries, the names of exercises and the countries which are partner of India in the respective exercises. So Yudh Abhyas is conducted with US Army, Austra Hind with Australia, Agni Warrior with Singapore, Harimau Shakti with Malaysia, and Garud Shakti with Indonesia, and the exercise Kaz Ind with Kazakhstan. So please remember these terms, names of the exercises, and the partner countries. Also, our national security advisor is saying that extremism and terrorism, they were against the very meaning of Islam, and the opposition to such forces should not be painted as a confrontation with any religion. So we should not connect things with religion and see them, because they are not related to any religion. and not acceptable in any form. Let's see ahead. So NITI AYOG, it proposes a decarbonizing strategy or policy of industrial emissions. So the name of it is the carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So first step is you capture the carbon, utilize it, and store it. So that can happen it can be a natural process also and artificial also. And the technology for decarbonizing emissions from high polluting sectors. So what are the high polluting sectors? You should know that that includes steel, cement, oil, gas, petrochemicals, chemicals, and fertilizers. So we have a target of halving our carbon dioxide emissions by the year 2050 and being net zero by 2070. So these targets can be asked in PT. So, okay, now the issue of refugees. So, Kuki-Chin refugees, they are migrating to India, entering the state of Mizoram from Bangladesh. And India is not a signatory to the United Nations Refugee Convention of 1951 and its 1967 protocol as well. This can come in PT, and we do not recognize refugees. We do not have any domestic policy as far as refugees protection is also concerned. And undocumented migrants, they are liable to be prosecuted for violating the Foreigners Act. So talking about the world news, from the perspective of the geography of Israel and Palestine, you should know about the areas around it, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and also the lakes and sea, if any, around it. So look at the map. So talking about the economy, we see that slow capital spending by the states and the central public sector enterprises is still a worry because it does not, despite the government increasing its capital expenditure, the center has increased its capex, but that is not going to imply that higher public sector capital expenditure is going to happen. And the center's capex, it has increased its share of 2.3% of the GDP last year to 2.5% for the first half of this current fiscal. And guessing he bats for the universal health coverage. So he is the chairman of the 15th Finance Commission, and he's arguing for inclusion of health in the concurrent list. And right now, the health it falls under the state list. So he's asking for universalizing the health cover, and he's saying that you need to capture the missing middle. So the population, the people who are not rich enough to buy private health cover and they are not poor enough to qualify for the government schemes. So we need to capture the missing middle population as far as insurance penetration is concerned. Then retail pilot for the digital rupee is going to start from 1st of December, and this e-rupee would be in the form of a digital token that represents the legal tender. So it's going to be a legal tender, and it will be issued in the same denominations as the paper currency and the coins that are currently issued, and they would be distributed by the banks. So users, they will be able to transact with the e-rupee through a digital wallet, which is going to be offered by the participating banks and stored on mobile phones or any other device. So transactions, they can be both between person to person and person to merchant. So initially it's going to be launched on pilot basis and going to see and analyze how it is going to perform. So initially few banks are going to participate, and this is going to happen in Mumbai, New Delhi, Bengaluru, and Bhubaneswar. And also, as we were talking about the universal health coverage, so we need to increase our current spending in the healthcare sector to 2.5% of the GDP by 2025. So currently we spend a very less share of our GDP in the health sector, so that needs to be increased to 2.5% by 2025. So talking about the cross-border rupee trade, so this is going to help us in reducing our dependence on the usage of US dollar. So in this context, we have talked in detail about the rupee Vostro accounts. So you need to find out how they function and what actually are the Vostro accounts and how they are going to benefit India. And talking about the steel imports, so the finished steel imports, they are hitting their all-time high from Russia. So Russia accounts for just 5% of the India's total steel imports, but Russia is one of the top 5 producers, top 5 exporters when it comes to the steel, finished steel. So this is it from the Hindu. Now let's just take up the Financial Express. Okay, so in Financial Express, the outgoing Revenue Secretary, what he has to say about the personal tax regime and the reforms needed. So he says that the atmosphere should be conducive in case there are violations in our system, and if they basically the people who flout the norms, they want to come back into the mainstream and pay their taxes and penalties. So we should allow that to happen, and this should be a part of the reforms. So Asia's biggest slum cluster, it will be done by the Adani Realty. So basically, rebuilding of this entire slum cluster by the Adani Group is going to happen. And talking about utilization, the G20 presidency of India, we need to try and set up an international biofuel alliance on lines with the International Solar Alliance. And from the PT perspective, you should know that we have a target of mixing of 20% ethanol in petrol by the year 2024-25, and this had been advanced by 5 years. Earlier, we had this target for 2030, but now it has been advanced by 5 years. So this is it from the Financial Express. We do not have nothing much. So let's quickly have a look at the Mint also today. So we will see. Okay, so here the flap, it is talking about the causes and the consequences of falling inflation. So in this graph, you can see that CPI and WPI both are falling and they are declining. This is for the month of October 2022, published by the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. So basically, okay, this thing is not opening up. So our inflation, the trend of inflation, it is declining. We can see, and effect on common man is going to be positive because with decline in inflation, our purchasing power increases, which is going to lead to increase in the aggregate demand and obviously the production activities, having a positive sentiment on even the investors' sentiment. So the retail price index is okay. So this is important. You need to understand this, that why the retail price index is lower than the WPI. So basically why CPI is now lower than WPI. The normal trend, usually CPI stays above the WPI. However, because of this COVID-19 pandemic, we saw the supply chain disruptions, and because of the crisis we saw constrained demand. So the demand fell, it drastically reduced because there were lockdowns and the factories, the manufacturing activity completely stopped. So it could have led to manufacturers, they are now absorbing the part of the cost and they're not completely transferring that to the consumers. So because of that, we can say that prices have not increased that much, or the real prices are not the ones that are there right now in the economy. So because of that, we can say that CPI is lower than the WPI. And let me just see if we have anything else. So the factors behind decline in inflation that we are seeing for the month of October is that the crude oil prices has reduced, and that is one of the reasons. Also, we are having a good amount of food production right now. So how should the policymakers read the trend right now? So do they need to, focus on, basically it is from the perspective of the monetary policy, do we need to, hike the repo rate more in future, or what should be the amount of rate? Should it be less or more? Seeing the trend of inflation. So that is the thing for the policymakers. And let's see what is going to be the next monetary policy that is upcoming in December. And this is it for today. Thank you so much for joining Ansarkari. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button and share the video as much as possible. See you tomorrow. Thank you so much.